And 3, 2, 1. Are we on? Are we on? Are we on? Are we on? Are we on?
It certainly appears so.
Lovely. Okay, lovely. Welcome to LibernetLIVE, the first edition of the podcast. I'm your host, James Reardon Waters, and I'm joined tonight with ERICK STOW, or Ero. So, yeah, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. You're
Good.
in a different part of the world, so tonight is this afternoon.
That's true.
Where I am.
That's true. That's true. Yes. Yeah. We were just talking about your art, really, because we were talking a little bit before now, and talking about you're a pretty big deal of an artist, right? You know, and I read Dylan's article about your art, and I was just it's phenomenal, right? Really, like the sort of the spaces you create with the canvas and how detailed it can be, and how you know, really kind of like putting digital art on a new sort of, giving it sort of a very new face. I think this is would be kind of my interpretation of it for sure.
Well, I certainly have a unique struggle when it comes to digital art. I started with analog, and I have an excellent background in abstract expressionists who taught me to start big with my craft, like Jackson Pollock.
Yeah.
And so I mastered his style. From there, each point is moving on and finding a new style and honing in and understanding what each artist saw in order to gain a better perception of our universe. If a designer can see the universe one-to-one with all its textures and flaws, it's the closest thing to God that we have. Someone that can see all the way to the atom and out the other side of the whole, which is into our imagination.
It's fun. I find it. It's interesting you bring up atomic, because I find that your work can be quite nuclear and sort of molecular. If I were to sort of use that comparison, it's like, I mean, yeah, I'll put a link to Eric's website in the description, and it's like it's these sort of kaleidoscopic sort of canvases, all digital, and all sort of like you can just keep, like fractals, you can just keep going in, and you can keep, there you go, perfect, yes, stuff like that. Yeah, unbelievable.
This is a paper piece, of course. If during the broadcast I could give you some pieces so that the people could see it in all of its glory, because this particular piece took almost 80,000 strokes to do. I remember I just got off tour.
Can you explain what a stroke is exactly? Because I don't do digital art, so not much anyway.
So when you draw a line, that's a stroke.
That's a stroke. Okay.
When your pen hits the paper and you travel,
yeah,
in the 2D, that's called a path line.
Okay. Yeah.
So you're drawing your path, whether you know it or not. Our signatures are our path.
Right.
That's a stroke.
That's a stroke. It took 80,000 of them. Can you put that in hours?
I can. Luckily, I have my trusty iPad right here to tell me.
Yeah.
So it didn't collect about the data on about the first, 10 hours of this piece that I'm talking about. This piece is called Coming Out of a Portal.
Yeah. And your pixel art and the art behind you is yours as well. Is that right?
Indeed.
Yeah, that's yours as well. Yeah.
I realized that there's a group of people that don't want art. They want interior design. And so I have a line for creators like us.
Yeah.
And the people who want to dream about our creations.
Yeah. It's I mean, it's fascinating, sort of like because I'm very sort of, like I'm relatively new when it comes to how art and crypto are sort of linked in together, especially like in the present day. And the you know and the concept that digital art can be bought or sort of supplied as NFTs, which are non-fungible tokens, which basically means, as far as my knowledge entails me, is that the art itself is a commodity, and a commodity you can have online, and there's a limited run of them, and this is
Energy is a commodity.
yeah, it's like, yeah.
This took 49 hours and 27 minutes
That you just
approximately.
showed me, yeah.
Mhm.
Jesus, yeah, and that's and you can kind of tell as well, because of how like it's just so, there's just, the detail is just unbelievable. It's like it's a whole it's a yeah, it's a whole new.
When I picked up the tablet, because I had been painting with texture with paint.
Yes.
When you apply texture to a canvas, that paint is the texture, and it was difficult for my stupid mammalian brain to understand the difference between the second and third dimension. I
Yeah.
went through an era, and I believe I'm still going through it,
Mm-hmm.
where I bring these things off the wall because to my stupid mammalian brain, they're in the room. But there's a hologram, and there's a texture, there's
Mm-hmm.
perception, and then there's super flat, and that's a Takashi Murakami pioneered
Okay.
super flat.
What
And
is he? Yeah.
I always wanted to understand why it was so flat. And so I kept drawing and taking pictures of my drawings, and all the drawings looked like were pictures of my drawings. So the idea is that I had to merge the digital and the analog world. And in order to do that, I had to draw on a tablet.
Yeah.
And I've been waiting for that technology for a long time. I think we all have.
All right.
Hence the current Rococo, where artists are able to embrace their gifts in the digital realm.
Yeah. And I mean, in regards to all of this, like especially just all technologies from social media to art to currency, it's all very, very, very rudimentary. We are still in we like to sort of pride ourselves as, oh, look how far we've come since the internet, but we're in very, very early days when it comes to not only online technology but also creative technology. And it's
Art and currency are the same thing.
mm,
The difference between my currency and the government's currency is that the government has an authoritarian currency.
mhm.
They make you fear so that you will buy their currency. We own this. We stole it. We will kill you if you don't pay our currency. We will
Yeah.
throw you in our jails.
And it's literally like ingrained in the nature of how it exists because of the US dollar and the Federal Reserve. It's a fiat. It's forced currency. It's literally what it means, forced currency. Um, and it's let it be done. Like, we're going to make this the currency anyway, despite the fact that there's no foundational value to it.
There is a foundation and there is a value to it. And that foundation was written a long time ago when farmers would bring their goods to market. And instead of exchanging corn for chairs, they started exchanging corn for coupons. And so the coupons could be exchanged for chairs. And this way, the farmers wouldn't have overages of their goods. They could qualify them in an open market. This is the beginning of the economic table that John Smith talks about in his book, his 5-volume book, The Wealth of Nations.
Yeah. I think it's Adam Smith, but yes, yeah.
Adam Smith,
Yeah.
Adam, John.
Just to be completely, yeah. Yeah.
One
It's
of those Christian names.
one of those Christian names. Yeah. It's yes, it's very. I find Adam Smith quite interesting in sort of, because a lot of sort of traditional people that, traditional capitalists and everything else, like, will sort of really put Adam Smith to a claim, but he was very critical of a lot of the beginnings of the processes of what we now define as modern capitalism. And he's not like this. He's not like this, like, think tank economist that believed that, like, believe all these things as people think. Of course, he very much believed in the the entrepreneur and sort of, the natural processes of the market, but he wasn't nearly as conformist to the sort of principles that happen today as a lot of people think.
Adam Smith straight up started the American Revolution. That book was written 1776.
Yeah.
Or it was either, yeah, it was 1776. And at the end of the book, because when we look at it, it is about economics. It's 100% about
Yeah.
economics. But what he did is he wrote a novel. And at the end of it, he dropped the mic because he explained economics in a factual way that people could understand at the time. His friends read that book. At the end of the book, he's like, "This is why fuck the Brits."
Yeah.
Pardon my language. Am I allowed to curse on here?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but I'm sure. Like, I'm sure.
You
Like,
you have my permission to bleep that out if you have to. You get to learn how to bleep in that situation. I'll keep.
Yeah.
I'll
I'm
keep.
sure. I'm sure it'll be fine. We'll. It could be an added. We'll see. We'll see. This is all. It's all early days, baby. We're all like, this is the beginning. So this is our little our little test run in regards to this whole thing, which will and the first of many to come, with hope. Yeah. So, yes. Yeah. I mean, what was the American? I mean, the American Revolution was founded on. Pardon my education, but
It's founded
you.
on facts.
Mm,
They're like, man, they keep taxing us, but they're not working. They
yeah, that's
can't
exactly
like
it.
we
Yeah,
can't be taxed if they're not working.
yeah,
And that was his point. He's like, look, this is, and he did an excellent job to discuss the differences between productive labor and unproductive labor, which is something I was very, very confused about at the beginning of my career. Because what had happened is I went to school one day to
mm-hmm.
interview someone in the art department.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't been an artist for a very long time. I'd been an
Yeah,
artist most of my life, but I'd started focusing more on business and economics in high school so that I could get into a good university.
mm-hmm.
I wanted to go to university to make money like most people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in university, they usually won't tell you the difference between productive labor and unproductive labor
Mm-hmm.
because they would sell themselves out of a job.
Sounds eerily similar to a lot of things that I've come across in the last 2 years.
It's a pretentious babysitting camp, but it was fun as hell,
Yeah,
even if it was terrible at some points.
yeah,
I met some very wonderful people in my matriculation at Texas Tech.
yeah. Me too. Yeah, and you studied at University of Texas. Was it South? Was it what was it?
Texas Tech University. I wish I had studied at University of Texas. They're a way better school, from what I understand. I maybe met one or two professors in the entire time
Mm-hmm.
of my studying
Mm-hmm.
at Texas Tech University. I can call good, no, three professors that I can call very, very decent people.
Yeah.
The other ones were maybe four. All right, four. There was a few of them. I like school. I liked it. I can't lie.
I find university. I mean, I studied sociology for 3 years, 4 years actually, and I do find it very strange because you find those pockets of intelligence and creativity and 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 quality of people, but a lot of it is very diluted by like vacuousness and superficiality from my experience anyway.
On my onset, when I was very young, they recognized that I was incredibly intelligent and they put me in a library to read on my own so I wouldn't get bored and act up.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went to university, I was doing the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Since graduating, I had to find, because in the United States, they don't allow for geniuses in the classroom. They don't allow for independent study. Everything is by the book. This guy, if he doesn't speak up for himself, and they won't, I would be surprised if they made exceptions where I was from. They won't put someone in an independent room to read books that he feels he should be reading, but it takes a level of maturity to make that decision as a child anyways.
Mhm.
So when after I graduated, that was the beginning of my independent studies, or the recommencement of my independent studies.
Me too. Yeah, yeah. As yeah, but personally as well. Like I found a much more genuine interest in philosophy after I stopped doing university and after I was put through the system of sort of reading because it looked good for the professors that were only a few years older than me. Not that that's a problem, but in
That's not
regard,
surprising. I think a lot of us come out asking why.
yeah, exactly, and the way that they sort of the way that it's sort of it's run and the way that it's jumping through hoops and you spend a month working on an essay only to have it skim read and have it completely affect your overall grade, despite the fact that you might be suggesting different opinions, and the way that you are forced to be so dependent on other writers that might not even interest you is it's just very strange. And that coupled with how democratized and free knowledge is nowadays makes me really question what universities' purpose is these days. Would you agree?
We're refining our global library, but once
Yeah.
our global library is refined, we'll find consensus on a lot of issues that we disagree about.
Yes.
The internet is doing that.
Yes.
And the countries are afraid because the borders kept people from banding up against the authoritarians.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think that the people will band up against the authoritarians. I think there might be a change in seats. There could be,
Yeah.
but like it's people that run the government. If they want to run the government, we're going to let them run the government, but they can't make us afraid. They're like, you know what? I'm just going to go over to New Zealand.
Yeah. It's gonna do
I'm
my
just going to go over to China. But
yeah.
there's, you know, there's as we become a more unified society, and I had a vision of it last night. Everybody wears helmets.
In
And
the
I think
vision.
in the vision, some are white globes, some are black. And people start to fit into their social groups and people that they get along with rather than their castes. Because I understand a lot of people that have a lot of money are very disappointed, and they feel like they can either choose have money or not have money. But really, it's about our social system. We let these things like greed get between us, and it destroys our trust. But once we understand that we are all the same, that self implies other, and we can evolve.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It'll be very interesting. I mean, seeing what the future holds for the next 50 years in terms of social and global developments. Because one thing that like, if there's anything like I've learned is that like you can't predict the future accurately because the future is really undecided, and and it is down to the people to decide what happens in the future. It's not a set path, and it's the creation and uh almost responsibility of people to decide. And that's very, I mean, it's very interesting when you think about like hauntology and like the fact that it could have just gone another way. It could have just gone a completely different way. That there's no determinate that says that this is the way things have had to be in 2021. And that's fascinating to me because it's fascinating to see how much control we really have.
There is. There's patterns. There's certain things that are bound to happen with our population. What happens in 2020, the pandemic, is the flu. It happened 100 years ago.
Yeah.
We're on a 100 year cycle. See the rise of white supremacy 100 years ago as a militant entity. We're seeing it happen again. The only way that we can avoid these things is by relying on first what we've created to help us, which is the computer. At the end of World War II, we invented the computer. This is going to help us navigate so we can communicate through our transitions. Humans have to have transitions. It's evolving. And as far as timelines, there's infinite timelines. For me, I have the power of prophecy. So I have prophetic dreams. and I wake up, and if my willpower is not strong enough, then I'll let those dreams happen, even if they're bad.
Mm.
But if I wake up and I say, this cannot happen,
Yeah.
I must not allow this to happen, my willpower will start acting, and I'll create art as an entity. The art moves as a dictator. Art is a dictator. You can't help but be affected by it. It's advertising.
Do you find that? Do you find? I mean, yeah, as a musician, I find that, and I had this very interesting discussion with a friend about the fact that you don't get to choose to be creative. Not in the way that people. It's not like a profession where you can just say, "I'm going to get into this now." I find that being a creative means that I have no choice. Sometimes I have no choice but to write a particular song. It's not like I came up with that song. It's like it's as if the song itself is speaking through me, and I have to like the song comes out in a very particular way, and it's a way I didn't decide. It's like I've gone it's like I've gone fishing down to some sort of unconscious level, and then it comes out, and I have to I have to make this. I have to manifest this song. I have to make it known, and I find that a very interesting thing. Do you find that?
I do.
Mm,
The first time that I experienced that in a laboratory or a studio,
mm,
it changed my life. I was working with other people who were musicians in 2018, and I didn't really know what I had because everything that I had been doing up to this point had no meaning. I was forcing stuff out and I was sending things to the future. I was practicing. But when I started to realize that my time is finite and that I had to compress this time, that I didn't have time to write, I had time to be a poet and speak. There's with the invention of the computer, we become designers. We can delete, but in real life, there's no deleting. There's no going back. So I had to practice for a very long time to understand the difference between my computer self and my human self. And so when someone turned on the beat and I started an endless flow of song and poetry, I felt what you're talking about. I called it the Great Divide. It's
yeah.
a it's an amazing feeling of in betweenness.
Yes. Who's in control? I find it's like that's what I find. It's like am I controlling the creation, or is the creation controlling me? I got this piece of art. I found it in. It's very very interesting. I found it in my room, and I know. And the weird thing is that this is when I lived with my mum, and we had no idea who drew it. Like, it wasn't any of us. It wasn't anyone else. We didn't know who drew it, and I saw it, and I felt compelled to write an album based off of that piece, that picture, and the entire idea, and the aesthetic, and the concept, and the structure of the album was in that picture, and that's the only way I can describe it. And thus the entire album was created. And this is a very strange thing in regards to creativity, because I'm not it's because it's a bit of a strange word, because it's a bit more of discovering. It's discovering some sort of pattern of truth that's out there somewhere that I can't quite put my finger on, but I can still be the medium for and express what that is, because some part of my intuition is like sing that pattern, and sing the pattern of current sort of cultural structures, like, certain pieces of music, and from there I've managed to create, like, there's this path of like, this is on the brink of what's going to come, and that's kind of been my experience with that. And from there, it does seem to be a very strange thing. Like, there's a certain, we're in a band now, and there's a certain sense of, now we have discovered what the band is about, and we have almost no control over it. Like, we do, but it's very much guided by this underlying phenomena, if you were to put it like that, of like, this is what we're discovering. This is what we want to communicate. This is something that we found in the sort of the recesses of creativity. So it's a very interesting thing.
That's beautiful. And I understand. And congratulations to your band. I listened to your song, and there's a lot going on in my life. And I took a moment because I had to really take a moment to listen to it. It's beautiful, James. I was swallowed in it like a blanket.
I sent you loving. Was it loving you? Was that the song I sent you?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm glad you liked it, man. I'm glad.
I guess swallowed in a blanket is the way that you'd want a song like Loving You to come off.
That if you want to talk about like some sort of thing, I really appreciate the positive words, by the way, and I can link it in the comment if people are particularly interested. But um, what I that was that what in regards to sort of being possessed by the create by that sort of artistic structure was that I spent a week in my room creating that song, doing nothing but creating that song. It was I couldn't. It was as if I couldn't stop, and I think it's better to think of it as I wasn't stop. I wasn't able to, like I was possessed by something that wanted to speak this certain thing out, um, and that's the crazy thing. I mean, that was a week before I because that was the sort of the tail end of 2016, and that was about 2 months after I got spiked with LSD, and I got spiked with liquid LSD, which meant that I describe a lot of sort of psychedelia if you abuse it as unearned wisdom, and you end up learning things that you weren't ready to learn about, and you're not able to explain the things you learned about to other people either.
When are we ever ready for the truth?
Mm-hmm.
We are never ready for the truth. The truth is so heavy, and it breaks us because we have fragile egos. LSD is the closest experience to truth that there is, because we're being aligned with a current frequency, which is mechanical. It can't be underestimated. An LSD experience, whether you're doing it voluntarily or you're spiked, means that you needed it.
The thing about LSD.
Any experience for that matter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was something that I had a very hard time grasping for the first couple of years, because about the psychosis kicked in, or the psychosis is obviously a word that I use. That's a word I use to describe it to people that don't understand what's going on. So like, and
You have brain damage. Your
yeah,
brain was restructuring cognitively.
yes,
You
exactly,
learned something.
exactly.
It's like discovering the wheel. Like the whole society that exists in your lobes has to restructure and be like, dude, we got a wheel now. What
Mm-hmm.
what are we gonna do with this wheel?
Yeah,
I don't know, man. I got some things I need to move around.
yeah. And then sometimes that conversation takes years as opposed to minutes.
Yeah, that's I encourage microdosing. LSD is harsh, but it helps one to understand how microscopic of a dose of anything we need in order to change our entire brain chemistry, our entire body chemistry,
Yeah.
whether it's sugar or alcohol or bread or
Mm-hmm.
water. It takes only one drop,
Yeah.
one kernel, one atom.
Mm-hmm.
You're introducing it into a new system. I don't know about one atom, but it depends on how social that atom is.
Depends on what the atom is anyway. Yeah. So this is the unbelievable. I mean, the unbelievable thing about the sort of the acid was the psychosis that came afterwards was I mean, it transformed me, and it really put into perspective what living a good life was, and being a better person was a huge change. Like there was this very much what's in it for me kind of mindset that came before that, and afterwards there was this sort of constant ambient awareness of the world as if it was beyond me and part of me at the same time. And that is a sort of that is the sort of experience that I kind of use as a foundation of my life, if you were to put it like that. And it's also the foundation of which I wrote my book, The Ecstasy of Nothing, which is a philosophical book that I'm yet to publish. I think we're going to use LibernetLIVE to sort of get that off the ground, which I'm very excited to do. And
Have you minted it yet?
sorry,
Have you minted it?
have I what?
Minted it.
Minted it? Not yet, so I don't know. No,
I haven't minted my graphic novel either.
yeah. In due course, hopefully. That's the thing. I mean, yeah.
This is we have to get on board on this. What's going to be difficult is that as early adopters, we're dealing with gas prices, which right now are astronomical.
Mm-hmm.
I minted a single piece, and I have to sell it for $750 because it was $100 just a mint, and then I have all the energy that I put into it.
Yeah. It goes up, man. And the thing about artists, and I mean, with the book I wrote, I would consider myself much more of an art, it's much more art based than sort of like, I don't know, like a sort of something that would be belonging to the service economy, because it's definitely, it's a creation thing.
We are a service economy.
Yeah.
There are people that cannot dream, and we dream for them. There are people that don't have gifts like prophecy, and we prophesize for them. The gift of prophecy means that we see one timeline and we have to navigate that timeline and around certain instances, or make certain things happen if we're very good at it in our 12th dimensional selves.
Mm-hmm.
And we as the thinkers, as the philosophers, as the writers, as the poets, as the artists, the musicians, we are in charge of uniting with an ultimate frequency, which is our highest and best achievement in terms of world peace and harmony.
Yeah. And what I find so crazy about the sort of the state of like society at the moment is how little artists and creators like that get for it. It's below the floor in comparison to the importance of art.
I wanted to let you. I wanted to talk on that for a moment,
Of course, yeah.
and help a couple of artists understand why they're not getting paid the amount that they would like to get paid. Here in the West, and I think we've been blindsided by coronavirus, we share a lot of chemistry. There's a lot of people. And so when I went around on my tour, my last tour, and shook 500 hands, I got 500 people's germs. I feel like I gave coronavirus to half of California. I probably did. I'm sorry, California. You didn't pay good prices for my art, so payback's a bitch. And that's another thing. When we work really hard, we get sick.
Yeah.
If the economy is pushing us to work endlessly, we're going to get sick. But when we get sick, we evolve. So this is a unit of art that has been unpackaged.
Mm-hmm.
I've taken this out, just like the two that I'm sitting on. My butt has been somewhere on or near this work of art. I can give it to my family or my friends, but I can't sell it to someone on the internet. They're going to get my germs.
Yeah.
So that's what this is about. It's opened. It doesn't have a sticker on it. It has no certificate of authenticity. This looks like I ordered off the internet and it's mine.
Mm-hmm.
This is a mint piece. You see the difference?
Mm-hmm.
Side by side. Side by side mint pieces. So this is a mint piece. It has a certificate of authenticity that I slipped furtively into it. A little magic card is a token to say thank you. There's another certificate of authenticity because a work of art has to have the address of its previous author, or it's not a work of art. We can use web addresses now. So if someone wants this, I live at www.erickstow.com, or I did live there, I might change it to its previous address.
Does this apply, to ask a stupid question, does this apply exclusively to digital art, or is this also refer to all art, like paintings, poems, all the rest of it?
There has to be an authentication process, or else you open up a market to forgers and copycats. I'm a very good forger. I can draw in anybody's style. It's a gift and a curse, I guess, because I can think like anybody else. It's very important. Well, I'm going to have my own spin on it probably. But if I find out what their inspiration, what their motivation was, I can replicate their struggle.
Mm-hmm.
But it's inauthentic in a sense, because I'm not doing my unique code in our matrix.
Yeah.
I'm doing someone else's code.
Yeah.
So my unique code is 11110010 period. That was the first code I was bestowed as a unique indicator of how I fit into this matrix. That's my number. I got it tattooed on me. I call it a time code because I started thinking a lot about time travel at that point. And as far as books go, what's beautiful about minting something online is that there are no germs exchanged.
Yeah.
People still like to own things in the physical world. Someone likes to crack a book, smell it, smell the pages. You know what a fresh book smells like. It's comforting. It brings you back. You can't send a book that, is torn up. You have to send them a book that is new. When you go to the store, you expect to buy something new. With our NFTs at LibernetLIVE, what we're doing is borrowing. So the advantage to this is sometimes when you're reading a book, you write something in addition to it because the world is writing a book. We're one big book or one big movie. It was more likely a movie. Um, but we come together on these things. Whatever your pursuit is, whether it's the culmination of all of our senses, is we can compile them into one artifact.
It's I write a bit about this in my book about like how the world is, I mean, very similar analogy to what you're saying. The world is a movie with with no autocratic director. It is decided by everyone. It is a movie. We are all the director of this one united film.
For someone who's never seen movies, the world is layers of cellophane piled on itself, and we're all just these plaid cellophane slips of paper. Make one big stack, but when we make stacks like air, we can put the world into different perspectives. When we're putting it into a literary perspective, it has to closely resemble a story.
Yeah. With the drawbacks of that perspective, especially when you sort of think about how sort of, I don't know, how narratives essentially sort of not prevent, but sort of they organize the story in a certain way that previous narratives were to run, and so not only do we have to sort of employ the perspective of, if we want to, that we are seeing things literarily, but we also should need to transform what it even means to be narration with the changing of technologies. That's what I would argue anyway. The whole process of narrative is going to change in ways that we can't foresee because of technological and social changes, and that's going to be a big step where we need to rethink a lot of things that came before with the invention of the computer and stuff like that.
Well, the narrative has always been human. What divides us is our languages. What unites us is our feelings.
That's lovely. That's amazing.
Thank you.
That's amazing. Yeah. again, going back to art, art is, of course, there are certain cultures and certain kinds of, you would call it, languages of art. But you will always feel something from it.
I have another piece of art to share with you.
Please, yeah, please.
Okay, so this is Twitch It.
Mm-hmm.
This CD is called Bubblegum Disturbium. I did the album art for it. It's my first album art. I look back at it, I could have done better, but it was my first. That's important. Still, I think it's a beautiful cover.
Good, man. It's good.
I'll send it to you. Anyways, I'm plugging that because we're talking narratives. And Twitch It and I just finished a music video yesterday. It's called 4x4. So 4x4 is it's a beautiful nerd anthem. Seriously, it shakes.
Yeah, cool.
She has this eerie kind of medieval harmony that she sings while glitching in it. She drew a picture, or she would open a notebook one day, and I was like, "Oh, hey, what's the occasion?" Because I'm usually on my iPad, like paper. Like I'm joking because paper is like so precious now.
Mm-hmm.
And I drew a couple squares in it, and then we started this video about being media vampires. Everybody's media vampires these days on pirate radio, and it's a sarcastic and sardonic look at the overwhelming influence of media. It's a beautiful video. It's my music video production directorial debut, and I started in it too. I styled it as well.
Cool. Yeah.
And for a first music video, she edited it, which, oh man, she's a genius
Yeah.
when it's editing. When she does editing, it's brilliant. It's so funny. And we'll put a link to the bio to it. It's called 4x4.
It's out. That's what I was going to. It's out now. Is it out now?
It was released on the 25th.
So like that's like 3 days ago.
Yeah, so it's fresh out there. It's brand new. It's the new. It's the new new.
Be sure to watch it as soon as we're done, and then I'll put it in the description. That sounds fantastic. Yeah, like that. The whole. I mean, the whole thing about our band, Grown, which we started three months ago, is over like sort of like very sardonic take on oversaturation and the amazing potential of blending cultures together. So that's our take. That's like our sort of like spiel with Grown, because
When
that
when
yeah.
you post this on YouTube, I'll post it to my Universalese account, because in my comic book I talk about this thing called the World Peace Machine. So I have two non-personal YouTube accounts. One's Universalese, one's World Peace Machine. And when we talk Universalese, we're talking languages that everybody knows.
Yeah.
Music, vibes.
Mm-hmm.
When I say vibes, I mean fashion,
Yeah.
gestures, and storytelling.
Nature as well. Yeah.
But this will be one of the. I've only posted a few on Universalese. I'm not too active on YouTube yet. I took a break. My hiatus. Like I was. It's weird to imagine the world still spinning while I'm out there. Sleeping in my car, selling art out the back of the trunk, like it's CDs.
Yeah.
I'm selling high art like it's CDs. Someone told me my art was worth 250K a piece because I invented a style
Yeah.
in Los Angeles, and I was like, no, no, you ruined my art. I want everyone to have it. Now they can't afford it, so I went and gave a whole bunch for free, essentially for free, just what I needed.
Yeah.
It was a beautiful experience. And that's the beautiful thing about these new currencies too. When I've created a currency, my experience with distributing this currency is that only people that I like and need to meet will purchase my currency from me. I'm gonna find those people. They're gonna find me depending on what pace I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
But it only leads me to situations and people that are worthy of the art now, worthy of the currency. I had to go crazy for a little while and make sure that the people who couldn't afford it would have it, but like they don't know how to keep things mint, you know? Like us nerds, we keep things in the packages. These people probably fucking tacked it to their wall, and thus negating
Exactly.
its value.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
But I learned a lot through that because I was one of those people. I'm still one of those people. I like to play with my toys. Who doesn't like to play with toys?
I mean, this goes. I mean, again, yeah. This sort of. I think this goes back to sort of this very strange perception of the value of art and how and how so many people work a grueling job that they can't stand to create art, which is far more valuable. And I find that very strange because most people make nothing from their art, you know, and some of it is just like it's just the value is off the charts. It transforms.
They haven't done leveling up. Like
Yeah.
I was a struggling artist for until I learned like what goes into being an artist. Because I graduated university and I was like, well, what now? I should probably leave my hometown. Let me fix this glove so it doesn't look stupid. The hole was enough. Um, I had to leave my town, and then I got to Toronto, and I had 3,500 bucks when I left, and I found out that the U-Haul was about 3,000. So I got to Toronto about $500. So every penny that I thought that I was going to be able to get a healthy start ended up being $300, 21 cents.
Mm-hmm.
$300, $321.78.
Mm-hmm.
So I was manic. I went out on the street and I said, look, Eric, you're either going to be an artist or you're going to die.
Okay.
And I started drawing, and marvelous, magnificent things started happening. I draw a I drew a jacket. It was, and some of the anatomy was off.
Yeah.
Those, as soon as I
I, your audio is a little bit messed up now at the moment. I think you might have unplugged for a second.
okay,
Oh, I think you're right now.
hello,
Yeah, you're
okay,
fine. You're absolutely fine now.
yeah, I messed.
Yeah. Is my audio all right, by the way? Is my audio good?
Yeah, your audio is fine.
Perfect. Okay.
This is incredibly old and misused microphone. It's so delicate. Microphones are so. My voice.
I've lost you again.
Can
It might just be a case of the wire sort of being like sort of delicately put in the right place. So that might be it.
okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, it's telling me something.
Okay. You sound okay for the second.
No, cool. I certainly wasn't supposed to tell that story.
There we go. There
So
we go.
I won't continue that story.
That's fine.
See it coming back with my frequencies.
You're fine.
Anyways,
Yeah.
long story short, I learned a lot about my art, but I was dirty as fuck by the end. So you can cut that one out too, or at least
Yeah.
bleep it. I was very dirty
Yeah.
by the end of that week. Who's gonna buy a dirty product?
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of artists, they think that they can get away with being dirty. Like you have to make dirty clean
Yeah.
in order to make it a
Yeah.
unless um because we live in a
Mm-hmm.
product.
We live in a product society, if that's what you said. Yeah. I mean, like the thing, yeah. I mean, a lot of part about like, you know, getting dirty is like being able to sort of like, you know, just be beside yourself and be able to sort of see, you know, sort of, maybe I lack an expression for it, but something. You go on, go on.
Oh no, I was testing the mic. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. um, yeah, I agree. You got to make dirty clean. You've got to have a good ethic behind it. I think if that's on the lines of what you of
But
what
we
you.
all know that clean is rich, right? The richer you are, the cleaner you are.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I'm going camping, I'm not very clean. If I make a lifestyle of camping, I'm definitely not very clean. But if I run a studio, everything in it has to be sterile. It's like in a tattoo. Like you're gonna get, hepatitis if you do tattoos like I did with Cornelius Van Gogh. And you can link that in here. She's got that up. When I was in Slab City, California, and I was like, hey, I get that word tattooed on me. Is halcyon was on the wall. I like that word at the moment for sure. I like that song Halcyon and on.
Yeah.
And so she did like I mean, it was theatrical. It is absolutely bananas. Like, and I'm plugging my comic book. I'm like on her. She's a popular broadcaster.
Yeah.
Cornelius Van. Sorry, they would kill me if I said that. By the way, um, wow, I'm so sorry, Cornelius. Um, Z, which is the non-masculine or feminine. Z and Zer,
Yes.
not they or them.
Okay.
So Z would kill me
Yeah.
if Z knew that, or Zer knew. We got to change our lexicon for real. Like our masculine, feminine lexicon. There are words for this,
I lived in.
and we're not using them.
But for one, like I have non-binary friends and non-trans friends, and it's definitely I mean it's pretty sort of, you know, it's pretty new to being center stage, and it is difficult it's difficult to change your language. It's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to do.
It's because we're using English improperly. Z X E or XER. Like we have the same there's masculine and feminine in Spanish, but there's also neutral. We have neutral, we're just not using it. I don't
Yeah.
know how we can launch a campaign to use Z, neutral Z.
Mhm.
Like it would solve a lot of problems on the they them frequency. We got the words, we're the writers, we need to educate the people. So if someone wants to have like create a campaign for Z,
Mhm.
then we can understand that they them is Z, and they don't have to write they slash them. They can write
Z
you
stuff.
know
Yeah.
Z XE.
Yes.
I'm sorry again, Cornelius. Z would be very upset if
Yeah.
Z knew that I
Oh,
was
okay. Yeah. I mean,
they knew.
yes. It's. But the thing, it's all about intentionality, isn't it? It's if there's a intent to sort of change your language to sort of identify the other person properly, then I don't see the problem. I don't see the problem personally. And
Habituation,
habituary shit, yeah, it's nothing.
education, and habituation. That's how Americans got people to brush their teeth in the early 1900s.
Yeah.
With initiative based on education in habituation. So
It's
the first
habituation and practice. It's not a, you know, like I have a friend called Nate, and you know, they identify as they, and they often, I often get their pronouns wrong, and it is just and they're okay with it because it's just a, because I'm not doing it's it's a practice thing. It's not something that I particularly choose to sort of speak in a certain way. Like a lot of it happens automatically. And obviously, with the automation of language, you're going to conform to certain social and lingual structures that you didn't decide, which is a lot of what the book that I've written is about.
We need to hashtag Z. Can
Hashtag,
someone start hashtagging Z?
yeah,
Like this
SU,
is
right?
a basic thing that we have to be educated about in order to show a day-to-day reverence for our non-binary compatriots,
Yeah.
companions, friends, padres,
Yes.
commodores,
Mm-hmm.
comrades,
Comrades.
people we communicate with.
It's it's very interesting. I mean, I'm noticing a lot and a lot about these sort of the democratization and the transformation of language, and I'm noticing it lots in memetics or memes. Like, we are all able to communicate to each other much faster and much more distantly. That's not a word. And with that, we're creating, there's so many, like, so many new words like, yeet and sus and innumerable others that I haven't got the brain capacity to mention right now. And I find it fascinating what creates a word and how a word ends up being used in terms of, and a lot of it comes in terms of utility and usefulness, but it also has to have a grounding in the real in order to, or in some perceived real, in order to actually be habituatable, if we were to use that word. And I find that fascinating.
I read an interesting article about this the other day by a fiercely conservative person. They lived in Palm Beach and was the chairman of some organization, and he called it liberal doublespeak, as if words don't become as antiquated as objects.
Mm-hmm.
Except some words hurt, some words intended to hurt or to belittle or to put people in castes, but we're moving towards a casteless society. Well, they'll be castes in my vision. It's more going to be like, what color are you? Oh, I'm green. Come hang out with us. Here's a green outfit. It'll be a lot more simple,
Yeah.
and elegant, like a designer created it. Because at the end of the day, everyone's going to be a designer.
Yeah. To go back, I wanted to mention in Finland, it was very interesting because I lived in Finland for a year, and they have a genderless language. It's entirely genderless. Like for he, him, she, her, ze, ze, they, them. It's all hun, h, a with a double with an umla, and then n, and it's all and I find that fascinating. It's like, sorry, what did you say?
Home.
Hun, yeah, hun. I think
Hun. Okay.
hun. So they got two
Hey,
A's.
hun.
Han, yeah. They got two A's because they got ah and then they got ah, and there are two different vowels in the Finnish language, and I find it fascinating. And a lot of conservatives will purport, would they purport Finnish language to be liberal doublespeak? It's like, no, language evolves, and that's how it's always happened. And I don't see what natural and natural evolution based on compassion and development and evolution is it has anything to do with totalitarianism or anything like that. If it's a very strange thing.
We're all dealing with the same things. We're all human. It's
Right.
incredibly difficult to make a singular lexicon universal. That's why we have music.
Yeah.
We all oscillate at different frequencies, though. There's spectrums for everything.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. I mean, what's so interesting about the interesting thing about language is that it does create entire worlds. So and language doesn't operate in the same way that language doesn't operate in the same way that music does, because language is based on particular rules and rules of how to communicate. It's not, you can't just simply, this is a lot, again, shameless plugging about the book, but it is very relevant.
Keep shamelessly plugging in. Make sure it's it's down there.
Yeah, I'll need to make a website. I'll need to make a website like ASAP, and then I can just have the Ecstasy of Nothing book, the book cover.
I'm gonna create a page on my website for my friends' books.
It's a great idea. Yeah, that'd be lovely. It'd be a privilege. If yeah. Yeah, but the thing about what I discussed in the chapter, The Lingual Instinct, is that language isn't this free form, oh, I can just say whatever I want. Language, unlike other forms of expression, like somatic expression of the body, art, natural expression, are based on very particular rules, and rules that are very contradictory to how the real world operates. For example, with language, you always have to separate the world into certain things. Like, when I talk, I have to separate when from where, and I have to separate talk from listen. The thing about the world is that these things the world doesn't have separations. So as soon as we speak, we separate and we distance ourselves. We move ourselves a step back from reality. And that's a very fundamental thing, considering we learn to speak from the moment we're born. And this,
we learn to copy from the moment
yeah, yeah. And we copy these lingual and conceptual structures that we didn't get to decide, and of which have rules that we can't erase, even if we were to change our lexicon. I'm not saying that changing lexicon is a bad thing. Changing your lexicon it can be wonderful, and you can move closer evolutionarily speaking, but you're still going to be based in rules, and these rules, such as the one of separation, you are going to divide the world into various categories, like categories of caste, categories of importance. And this is a very strange way of seeing the world. Animals don't do this. Animals just see the world as it really.
Animals have social hierarchies.
Animals have animals have
Even
social.
meerkats.
They have social hierarchies, but I'm not sure I'm on the notion that they see the world in the way that we do, in terms of categorical separations. That's my point. That's the only point. They do have social hierarchies, and they do have, like, for example, ravens will have if they see a threat, they will leave, and they'll always come back in groups of 6 to sort of investigate the threat. This is fine. But in terms of the sharp-edged categorical separation that we have, I find it to be a very interesting thing, and how that relates to how we see the world. Because when I'm meditating and I see the world, how it's these sorts of judgments on the world disappear. I just see, it's as though the world is in streamline with myself and in streamline with itself. This is something that, like, I find that we're going to have to find a way to sort of tap into that again, because we're so focused on divisions and divisions of a very particular nature.
We can also look at it from the manifestation psychology perspective, which is Lacanian.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know who Jacques Lacan is?
I know Jacques Lacan. Yeah, I know Jacques Lacan.
Good. He invented the idea of the matheme, that we can categorically put ourselves in icons. The subject being S, with the line through it, is divided into unconscious and conscious states.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that we manifest our reality based on iconography. So we have icons, symbols, and then our real reality. Our real reality is where we examine, like, the fibers of this jacket, where it came from, and all the energy that got put into it.
Yeah.
Icons being the spoken words, and symbols being what I do in art, or figurative words, painting pictures, whatever is not icon is symbol. So if you have a dream, dreams are all symbol. If you talk in your dream, that you're expressing icons in the dreams. I had a dream, speaking of icons and dreams, where I saw the code of my reality being written based on an icon that I created. So it's like hacking it into my own mind using icons.
Yeah.
Overlapping different sections of time to do it scientifically is Hermeticism, which is supposed to be a secret.
Mm-hmm. I need to read this book on Hermeticism, actually, which is very interesting, and sort of the relationships between, like, archetypes, and I need to learn more, obviously, but the relation between archetypes and sort of fundamental patterns that happen in human life and natural life, perhaps, that
that aren't really on the forefront of public consciousness, perhaps. So that's something that'd be something very interesting for me to sort of get into, actually.
We are public consciousness. Our social biases are our own inherent discriminations.
Mm. Mm.
There's and we see through history, as with the homosexuals, that thing being illegal, that thing being love, two people coming together, that was illegal.
Mm-hmm.
What we're really battling against is consent and isms, ageism, racism,
Mm-hmm.
conservatism, liberalism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But all we really want, and Neo said this at the end of spoilers, the Matrix trilogy, the problem is choice.
Mm-hmm.
It's consent.
Mm-hmm.
If two consenting people or a group of consenting people consent on an issue,
Mm-hmm.
and there's consensus on the issue. That's an anarchist perspective, though. I believe in anarchy and order, and I think that the blockchain is going to prove that right.
Yeah.
Where people will fit in their own social groups on the internet.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the decentralization and the decentralization, what of cryptocurrency, what it does above all is it enables people to have the tools to choose for themselves what currency is and what currency does and what currency is for.
Well, the government can, as I know about the Chinese government, they can always ban certain sites, taking away people's access to social currencies. That's our next war. Like, is taking the walls down on the internet to preserve our cultures, but to allow our cultures to inspire other cultures, so we can have a universal ethic. That universal ethic being human, understanding the difference between local and global. That local, well, it's going to be dictated by what we eat. So if I have a habanero pepper, I'm going to have a different mindset in my tongue about my surroundings, being that habanero peppers are usually grown in incredibly hot environments. The avocado is very popular right now because everyone likes spring. Avocado is very temperamental fruit, that it's like, okay, I don't like it too cold or too hot. If you don't grow me in the right temperature, I will not feed you.
Terence McKenna said something very interesting, which he said if a culture is what it eats, and that
absolutely
was just a mind. It was a mind frick. You know, it was like,
our culture is full of guilt and regret. Then
and
I know for the longest time, all I ate was, well, my diet was heavy, consistent sugar, alcohol, and meat. So eating these creatures that have a central nervous system and taking for granted that they have lives that are as complex, if not more complex, than my life. I'm an alpha predator, so I can eat anything on the planet because I got tools. Doesn't mean I should. It's okay to feel guilty about that.
I think the two. I think the two. Whereas before there were other issues, I think the two central movements going on. There are obviously other ones as well, and I could be overestimating these two, but I really think at least two of the biggest revolutions happening right now is what we eat and how we spend and what money is. With veganism being definitely this very big change. Like, we're seeing more and more of it every day, and I don't know what your feelings are, but it's definitely not something something to underestimate.
My feelings are succinct. That an animal will never consent to be killed.
Yeah, quite. And this is something of a more. I'm glad you do, because you know we the thing is that we have these the moral argument is indisputable. In my opinion, I think it's indisputable.
We have technology now that can impersonate these animals. We don't have to hurt them anymore.
Exactly. I'm looking forward in a decade or so to going to my local restaurant and getting a synthetic steak. It would be fantastic, because like, I remember when I was in Finland, I used to eat steak, and like I went to a steak place and it was really nice, and obviously I then learned, and I felt terribly guilty as a result. And what I've, and with the creation technologies, this is just a thing of the past. It's not even mentioning the unbelievable damage it's doing to the planet through, I think it's 13 liters of water are used to make a beef burger.
Yeah.
I get the quinoa burgers.
That seems yeah, that's our ability to measure these things and to disseminate this information and put it into perspective should help the people who are having trouble kicking their addiction to poison, because they're addicted to poison. That's the only thing we can get addicted to.
I mean, this is what this is, this is poison. This is a cigar, by the way. This is not a blunt, but it's this sort of strange,
It's a phallic object.
The phallic object, and I'm putting it in my mouth. It's there's something happening, and
it implies, because remember when you touch your mouth, it means I have something to say. So you put an object. Ayn Rand said it incredibly elegantly in Atlas Shrugged. She said that when a man has a cigarette, when he's smoking a cigarette, it's like there's a fire burning in his brain, and it's a metaphor, the fire burning on the end of the cigarette tip. That kept me sold on cigarettes for a while. Then this little kid came up to me and he said, if you keep doing that, you're not going to exist for very long.
This is what you said to me before the podcast began.
Yeah, I love that. And it was the word exist that got me. This I think it was like 7 or 8.
Yeah. It's more fundamental than live in some ways. It's a different kind of feeling when you hear it to live, because a lot of the time, in my opinion, I'm just sort of like, well, I'm not living most of the time anyway. I'm busy. And exist is something that I can't turn off,
Not living, but being busy. That's something to think about.
Something to think about, man. It's something that...
I had this feeling yesterday. I talked to myself because I'm a good audience. I'm a good listener. I was in my kitchen and I'd smoked some weed the day before, and when I wake up the next day, I feel like I'm late on everything. And the Who said this in the rock opera Tommy. He's like, when Tommy has become aware, which is the top of Maslow's hierarchy, self-awareness. He points to the kid who's smoking the weed. He goes, "Hey, you smoking Mother Nature, you'll miss the bus." And I think about Spider-Man when he first started off being late for everything, and everyone smoking weed knows that Spider-Man's smoking weed that whole time. They don't show it in the comic books and the movies because of the comic book code and rating system, which is censorship, by the way, which indicates there's a fascist. I use that. I'm not going to say fascist. It indicates that we aren't. The microphone didn't want me to speak on that, so I'm not going to continue that.
That's I forgot the word. That's my tool. Censoring. That's the censoring happening.
And censoring is in place. I haven't read enough about censoring to understand. Like, they're censoring on hate speech. They're censoring on deception and manipulation. And whether or not our humanity is offensive on screen is the question. Do I offend you with my shit? Do I offend you with my haircut? Do I offend you with my lack of formality? People, there's rules and constructs to keeping order in a very large society. I understand that. The empire will fall if there's no balance. We want balance and hedonism. We're working towards that as a culture. We want to help other people out too, though.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is the thing about the sort of the misunderstanding about sort of taking an anarchist stance on certain dilemmas, because like it doesn't imply violent revolution. It's simply, I mean, anarchism above anything else, I think, just questions certain authorities. I mean, that's might be one very crude way of putting it. But
And that's the role of the counterculture. All we want is consensus.
yes,
We want to be like, okay, we're this way. We want to do our thing. You're that way. You guys do your thing. Just because you guys are in charge in your authoritarian position that you invented using guns and stuff, like
exactly.
it's of course turned into that the system is protecting itself from the people when the people are the system. And um as the counterculture, we have the responsibility to harmonize these two entities so that one isn't afraid of the other. And I think with all the changes that are being made, especially in the United States, changing the police force, putting more African Americans in charge of high positions in the justice systems so that they can show compassion to rules that were made exclusively to genocide our culture. There's a lot of people who are purists, and they think that because they have, I don't know, Scandinavian descent or an elite European bloodline that they're entitled, and then they call us entitled, who are the real princes and the real royalty, the artists, the musicians, the people who feel everything.
Yeah. Feel everything for some people that like have decided to shut that stuff out.
It's a heavy weight. It's a heavy burden.
Absolutely. I mean, going back to like, I mean, this might be a bit of a tangent, but just like going back to like, you know, music and sort of like, you know, my personal creation, you know, like, you know, like I wrote a music video like, you know, a few days ago for this song, and I'll actually find to send it to you. It's not released yet. We're going to release it. We're going to release it with a video, I think, soon, and we're going to find some way to, I don't know. I wanted to actually talk to you maybe maybe off the podcast about like how to turn a music video into an NFT. That's something that like I don't know if it's a possible thing, but it'd be something it'd be very interesting to sort of see that, because
you can turn anything into an NFT.
Yeah.
Like all you have to do is mint it on Cargo and put the music video in the you put the preview, and I think the preview should be several frames of the music video. And then you put the music video in the associated files.
Yeah, thank you, thanks for that. Yeah, I'll when it's out, I mean, it's going to be good, man. Like you know, it was one of those late night, you know, the lights were dim, and I was just like listening to the music and sort of pitch shifting it and sort of going into that, you know, that indescribable sort of like place or whatever that comes from like that creative bottomless pit, but not in a good way. But like, yeah, it's
I like that bottomless pit. It's a bottomless pit without gravity.
Yes, it is. Yeah, yes, it's a bottomless pit without gravity, and without time in some ways. But yeah,
like the constructs of reality. There's similarities.
There's similarities. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the thing, and like, you know, it's when I'm going to release that, I'm just going to be like, you know, this is a part of my soul that I can't speak with anything else but what it is, and that's just the very strange thing about art and receiving art and creating art. It's you are sort of expressing a part of your soul that just doesn't exist on the official level, and it's just a maddening thing. And yeah, but NFT, like turning into an NFT, because I would, yeah, it would be fantastic to sort of release it with an NFT, because it's going to be, you know, it's going to be a very odd video. It's going to be very symbolic. It's going to be kind of, you know, sort of a bit very meta as well, like in terms of how the, like one of my plan is to have the aspect ratio change over time, so it opens up more like this and it opens up more like this, so you're sort of seeing what you have to see, and sort of reminding the audience again and again that you are watching a film. This isn't a doorway, you know, it's a construction, and at the same time it's a doorway in a way that isn't direct, like from just documentation or something. You know, this is kind of the ideas I'm sort of I want to try and flesh out properly for this project, and it's going to be very fun, and we're going to do it up at the hills, like, which is very close to where I live, and it's going to be very, very fun to do. But yeah.
In terms of meta, and I know I haven't released my comic book. It's like for sale for $5 on my website from Gumroad. So if you like, the listeners that we want are the ones who are interested in the NFT, the unique holding experience. So when you download something off my website, you're going to get not such a unique experience, I guess. But when it comes to meta, I encourage, like, I hope that you get to read my book. I mean, it's only $5. But like the story starts as the author, which is me. It's like a doodle in a box, and then dreaming, and then I go into my pen, and then it says +1 XP.
Right.
And then I'm in this other world, and I'm a character that I created when I was about 11 years old. Now the character knows that he's in a comic book because it's a scratchy comic book, and he's like, I got to get out of this scratchy nonsense. This book is ugly.
Yes, yeah, it's exactly the same. Yeah, the same shit. I'll probably pick that out, but yeah. Go on.
It was a hell of an experience writing this book. I became like I raised my frequency, my vibrations so much when I made the digital. There's a digital switch where in the third act, where Happy Man, it's called Happy Man, moves from, he gets out of one notebook, he gets to a better notebook, and then he realizes even the better notebook that he's still not now. And so he makes the digital switch. And then when I made the digital switch, it was really weird for me because I became now. I entered now, the nowscape. And I got a message from a high profile, like a high profile person in Los Angeles who the signs kind of indicated, at least from my perspective, I thought it was ERICK STOW. All signs pointed to that. Even in our conversations, but I wasn't ready for. I'm still like bugged and toxic, and I didn't switch my eating habit. I wasn't red pilled to the max, like every action, and I'm still working out the every action thing so that every moment of my life I'm present.
Yeah.
Instead of relying in antiquity as a crutch, or my anxiety as a debilitation.
I spent a lot of last year I spent a lot last year like learning how to be very productive, but I spent a lot of last year being around unsavory people and being anxious, and there was a whole year of that anxiety. And when it came into the new year, I had this revelation. I said, I can't count the amount of times I've been anxious in that year, and it did nothing to help. It has absolutely, like, it might besides developing your character as a person, which is something else, but in terms of solving the direct problem that I had, did nothing. There's nothing it does that helps. Like, maybe it helps me like be more precautious in the future, but where does that even lead in the end? Because you end up being terrified of the world, and that's not a good thing. And that's not a good thing if you want to be present. If you have a bad experience with someone in the outside world, and then the response is, well, I can't go see people in the outside world anymore, it's a bad response.
Well, trauma is natural, and I think that was what the shock music, the shock generation was trying to teach us, is that like we're all traumatized.
Yeah.
The world's traumatic. Like either like get to living. Go ahead and get your trauma out, because it's gonna happen. They call it a trauma cycle. There's if we have periods of peace in the balance of the universe, peace implies not peace. So we become either at war with each other or at war with ourselves. Familiarity breeds contempt. And if we're too familiar with peace, we
Mhm.
want war.
Mhm.
The duality of the dual nature of the universe, which is a hermetic philosophy. There's if you have hot, you have cold. You
Mhm.
can call hot very, very not hot, the opposite of hot, but it's still cold.
Yeah.
And it's these dualities that exist inherently in our holographic reality.
Well, this is what I think the yogics are trying to get at when they talk about blissfulness, because blissfulness is a sort of, it's where you sort of step out of the like, because everything is run in cycles, you know, with trauma cycles, with this and with this and with this, with cycles of samsara, rebirth and death. But the thing
Indeed.
about, but the thing, the sort of, if you want to sort of, if you are, you know, and most people can't get there because they don't want to. And I think I might be part of that group of people. I think I probably am. But if you want to escape the cycle of samsara, you have to see it all for what it really is, and you have to step outside of it. And
The it's important. Samsara, death is important.
Mhm.
First of all, it's natural. We can't be afraid of it. But what we did during the Civil War, the American Civil War, when people needed to make money, they started selling caskets and stuff. We have distanced ourselves in our English speaking culture
Mhm.
from even the concept of death. We don't go and talk to the dead anymore.
Mhm.
We're terrified of it.
Mhm.
Looking at ourselves as in a state of decomposition is inherently opposite to what we want, which is our libido. Our mortito is everything that we don't want. But in order to embrace our libido, we have to embrace certain aspects of ourselves that need to die off. I was a totally different person 2 years ago. Not at the core level. I'll always be the same at the core level, as the sameness goes.
Mhm.
But my habits needed to die. Some of my habits, and I realized when I ate chocolate that I raged,
Mhm.
so I stopped eating chocolate.
Mhm.
When I ate sugar, I was mean.
Mhm.
I'm swallowing because I'm appalled at how horrible this chemical, this poison made me
Mhm.
act towards other people.
Mhm.
Alcoholics will understand this because they mix their blood with poison and they become in part partially poison. We have a poisoned society who wants desperately to be good to each other at the deepest part of ourselves, but we have to break these addictions by dying in our non-physical
Yeah.
bodies.
Yeah. And but I mean, for the idea that sounds scary to that some people, Buddha said, just as I was scared over a snake in the grass before I realized it was a stick, um, just in the same way, I can be equally unafraid of getting rid of the I in this way because it doesn't exist, and these habits we attach to ourselves aren't us, aren't who we are. In if you were to, in that right in the appropriate conceptual framework, and to remove them is to sort of have this fear. Like often when I feel like I'm going into something happy, I often feel like I'm hold on. I define myself by my pain. I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. And when it's gone, I realize that there was nothing there. I was empty to begin with.
Well, here's the thing about happiness, that there's a difference between joy and ecstasy. It took me a long time to figure this out. And I think that's why I wrote Happy Man. It's because Happy Man is about joy.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're used to thinking makes us happy is ecstasy.
Mm-hmm.
We become ecstatic or excited by
Mm-hmm.
the dopamine rushes.
Mm-hmm.
Joy has more to do with all of our social chemicals coming together in harmony. So when you say going into something happy, excitement, whether it's relative to joy, joy is like a sustained, non-excitatory. Am I using that word right?
Excitatory. I think the word is appropriate. Even
Non-ecstatic, excited, excitatory,
I like excitatory.
exalted. Without exalt, it's a state of habitual excellence, like Socrates said.
And I feel like joy. I'm trying to get into sort of like I have a sort of new philosophical theory I'm developing about signification and sort of making things significant into things, very similar to separating things. And when I find that when you're ecstatic, it seems to always be directed at some sort of thing in the world or some illusion, like, oh, I'm ecstatic because I won the lottery, or like, or something like it's always over. This might be a bad framework, and I'm still like
It's like, why would we get excited about money?
Yes, exactly.
Because money buys us what excites us.
Yes.
And I think winning the lottery is one of those things that like people who are, it's another thing, like like sugar. It's the lottery is sugar.
Yes.
Whereas someone that says, I won the ability to be a part of a long career,
yes,
which will be fruitful, full of bumps and exaltations. And in this road, people they don't say that. They say, I'll win the lottery.
Yeah.
It's to differentiate ourselves. We'll bring it back to cash, and we'll bring it back to money, which has to do, of course, the NFTs and the blockchains, productive labor. Is that like we have to be farmers of thoughts, farmers and distributors, and understanding that money isn't real.
Yeah.
It can be abused, or it can be completely taken for granted. But what it represents is our energy.
Yeah. Absolutely. And this is the thing. This is the what I say. This is the fundamental difference between being happy over, for example, representations of the world, like, oh, I'm happy because I won the lottery or something, which has this sort of conversion into energy, but it's always this sort of like immediate kind of sharp, fixed, sort of ecstatic and this sort of rush towards one thing, which ultimately creates tunnel vision, but of a sort of very contrived sort of faked sort of joy. It's like it's the same. It's this. I think it's the same energy as anxiety, but except it's more of this kind of rush of like addiction, like, oh, I'm really enjoying it. And then there's that joy, and I feel like joy is the affirmation of all things. It's the totality of things. Like, I am joyful because I am alive, and because I am in the first place, and that's a very different thing.
I'm taking them off because I think I can handle the light right now for a minute. It's starting to hurt my nose.
Have you got is it like a large light that you've got to sort of you use to pot your
yeah, it's a spot. It's like a hardware spot.
Nice.
Oh, I'm not trying, like, I like it because I get to take it off. It brings me a little bit back to like, I'm not doing this to be mysterious. I'm doing this to block the light out.
Yeah.
Although they do look cool.
My camera has mine's got this lovely ring light, and luckily I've got these wonderful lights installed here, which means that I can control the color of them. So
look at us breaking the fourth wall, meta.
Behind the studio of LibernetLIVE with Eric and James, or Jimmy, whichever we'll decide to call me.
I told you I'm a Jimmy too, right? My middle name is James.
Is yours your middle name James?
Yeah. James Charles is a proper British name.
Wow, James Charles. That is proper British. And and yeah, they should just call it with James and James. But and that light over there is like red, and that it's just, yeah. But it's nice to have that setup. But we'll, we don't have to break the fourth wall for too long. But it's nice to sort of it's nice. I think we've got good setups for this sort of thing for the future.
We're already like I wasn't centered that whole time. That's breaking the fourth wall. Oh, we're gonna have to start over again. Showmanship.
Uh,
So
yeah.
check it out. Now that my eyes are open, I'm starting to rely less on the conversation and more on the props. These are I did these little logos.
No, yeah. I can't quite. They look very sigil-esque.
Well, it's an interesting symbol. I combined a bunch of symbols or icons, a few symbols in there, to pre-program an instance in my life. My art moves me. There's no doubt about it. But if you have one frame in life, it suggests one situation. If you have multiple frames in life, it suggests a trend. That's why companies have logos.
Yeah.
And it's there's a lot to unpack in there.
It's certainly like, I mean, like what is branding? That's the whole thing. And it's something much more mysterious and deep than just like, oh, you got to make the product sell. It's like, well, no, what do you mean by that exactly?
Oh, I know about branding.
Yeah.
But it's about culture. Branding is about culture.
Yeah.
And if you can tune your culture as you would a musical instrument, and there's I did these experiments with my new Moog synthesizers, and there's frequency patterns, and like you press a button, it's like whoa 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 whoa. But the pattern starts going faster, whoa, 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 it turns into a star, and it can be a 6-pointed star or a 16-pointed star. It's music theory is religious scientifically. What our science, what the symbolism that we see in mysticism is musical.
Yeah.
In its fabric. It's the same thing. And so these frequencies and tuning these frequencies, your eyes must be very dry.
Yeah. I mean, because of the blinking thing, right?
Yeah, dip your fingers in your water in front of you.
I haven't got any water on me at the moment.
Go grab some water, man. Let's make this a little bit less formal.
Okay. I actually have this. The eye thing has happened since I started taking the antipsychotics, and I'm coming off of it now.
Oh my goodness! I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make you feel.
No, don't worry, Eric. No, don't worry. I mean, I would say to do the water thing. It just sometimes it doesn't really like. It's not really like a thing that like can be so. But I'm coming off the meds now, so like that's going to be like a big.
Did I tell you about my experience with antipsychotics?
No, please tell me. Yeah.
My first time that I had a manic episode. Basically, my toxicity went so high that I became quite literally a maniac. I couldn't sleep. I was a lunatic. What lunatic means. And I had created this equation, a flow chart. I thought that this was a very important thing. So I was at my university, and I was trying to get everybody on board with this, not exactly knowing what I had in this flow chart. And they sent me to the heads of like the chairs of 3 different departments before the psychology chair was like, this kid is manic. He probably needs, but somebody had called in a bomb threat to get out of a test at the business administration building the same time I was running around with my little flow chart. So they thought it was me.
Oh my God.
Which even afterwards, because I was so insane, I was questioning whether or not I had made that phone call. I hadn't, but in some version of the story, if self implies other, that person was going through the same kind of insanity that I was going through. Our insanity coordinated.
That's the kind of sameness that sort of like, because I've been, I know actually, which is weird because like I was in a situation where I was being like medicated in hospital in Finland, and all the nurses, like I had 3 different nurses approach me, and I couldn't tell any of them apart. They all looked the same. It was like they all had the same face, they all had the same, but they had different hairstyles.
That's surreal, man. It's like seeing a silhouette.
Yeah. It
Dude,
was
if you could illustrate that, that would be a really powerful image in a graphic novel.
that'd be crazy. Well, I mean, you can have that one if I don't get round to it. Like, yeah.
Okay. Well, I don't want to be in front of 3 nurses. Unless they're the good kind of nurses, not
I mean, like, you know, like they were saying, they were trying to give me this, like, I think it must have been diazepam to sort of like calm me down. And I was like, I don't want that. And they really insisted. And then I did it. It's helped me sleep as well. And I like remember like sort of waking up, and it was like this heavy blanket was keeping me. I was like drowsy, but I couldn't sleep. It was a hellish night.
I understand. I've been there. I had a pair of white pants
Yeah.
because in the movie Tommy, the main character, ran around after he became self-aware. He ran around the countryside in a pair of white pants.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I am Muhammad, I am love. And I declared this to my father, who had come back from Saudi Arabia because he heard that I was insane. He was doing neonatal SICU there, in Nurses Without Borders. And I ran for about 12 miles outside of town in bare feet.
Yeah.
Just ran.
Yeah.
I just ran and ran and ran.
Mm.
And so there's a lot of energy that we're not using. But when they gave me lithium, my ear I woke up and I had blood I had a scab, dried blood coming out of my ear. And I said, there's no way I can take this. I'm way too sensitive. No one said, what is your diet?
No one does.
Like,
No
are
one
you on
does.
drugs?
No one
Are
does.
you on drugs? Are you on drugs? Yes, I'm a drug addict. All right. Well, let's just lock you up for a day, charge you about $10,000 for that,
Yeah.
and see if you get better. Everyone knows the system's broken.
Never diet. It's never diet. Even with COVID, man. Like with COVID, like it's all masks, and I'm not saying masks are bad, but it's all masks and distancing. There's no talk into vitamin D, for example, of which 70% of the population are deficient in, as far as I know. There's no talk in eating vegetables. There's no talk in natural fats, desaturated fats. There's no talk in other vitamins. There's no talk in like one of the things about psychosis was as soon as I started taking niacin, because I my speech was muddled. Like I couldn't think the next word ahead of me.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. It's fine. I mean, I got back from Finland and I watched a documentary of my stepdad, who's very spiritual, and about these sort of I question the legitimacy of it, just because I like to be sort of critical and skeptical. But they were giving schizophrenic patients niacin, which is vitamin B3, and in some cases it completely wound back and removed their schizophrenia. And I just thought it was unbelievable. So I was like, okay, let me just try niacin. It's not going to interact with my other medications, so I'll just try niacin. And then I tried the niacin, and within 2 weeks, I immediately found myself. It wasn't even like a noticing. I just found myself being insanely more productive and insanely more articulate. And I sort of realized that, like, and a lot of it might be psychological, but there's the same thing. There's no difference between them.
True.
There's no difference. If there's no difference between getting an MRI scan that sort of puts waves into your brain to make it heal itself, and just putting a fake scan to say, oh, your brain's healing itself, and then you believe it. We can't actually make an empirical division on those two things because it's all connected. Your willpower is your body in that sense.
Yeah, and we can we have scientists that need something to do because that's what serves the empire, so they get paid for that. But the schizophrenics, they need something to dream.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think our apocalyptic empirical what I don't want empirical is the word, not the word for this.
Mm-hmm.
Because empirical means like objective. We've created a nightmare of production that we have to be productive or we are completely useless to society, based on who's bringing what. But like, computer's going to change, AI is going to change that for sure, because we won't have to be productive anymore. Everything will be produced for us and we'll get to live in the moment. So when we create these pieces of paper that were so many moments ago, it won't mean anything. We'll do things like monks, where we build something up, tear it down.
Tear it down. Yeah.
Like, hey, you guys want to build a fort? Yeah. You guys want to tear down the fort? Yeah.
We made a snowman a couple of weeks ago. Same bloody thing. Same bloody thing. You make the snowman because if you knew it was going to stay there forever, you wouldn't make it. you'd make snow bars and snow offices.
I did about 1,000-piece kind of generative art project, but I don't know how to use computer generative art projects yet. I'm just a generative person. So I'm at completely the moment in this, listening to a very beautiful song about slowness. And that's where we want to, and when we talk about the great divide and singing the in between, that space where you're being pulled to the moment, that's where we should all be living all the time, all of us. And that's why the computer's so great, is and technology is awesome.
And it's baby steps. We think that like this is like the pinnacle. We're in caveman times, baby. This is like just the beginning. This is just the beginning.
It's going to be beautiful. We're all going to have to wear helmets, but like, at least we're going to be able to boogie.
Boogie, like in different colored helmets. Do I get to choose my colored helmet?
Oh yeah, man, it's fashion.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna the future that I see is very beautiful jumpsuits and helmets, like basically like superheroes.
Yeah.
Like we can't go around. And this is interesting. First of all, when I was with Corona, I was driving around for like 6 months in my car with a Corona bag in my car, like a Corona cooler. That's what I ate everything out of. So it was really funny that it became, actually, it's not funny. Sorry. Millions of people have died. I think it's quite interesting of a synchronicity. What I was going to say, I totally lost my train of thought. Because
you made a Corona bag. Let me try and help. Yeah, something. I mean, yeah. There was a thing about technology, and yeah, is that there's technology and jumpsuits and helmets.
Oh yeah. Super. Okay. Yeah, I'm in Hawaii, and I'm talking to Noah, and I apologize, Noah, if I can't remember how to pronounce your last name. That's so non-diplomatic of me. But Noah's one of the last princes of Hawaii. And when I got there, I shook his hand, and he goes, "I'm going to show you this Hawaiian handshake," and we breathed each other's breath, and it was so natural to exchange breath. I hope that our future isn't helmets. I hope I'm wrong. And I believe there's a way to navigate it. We can't keep working ourselves to death, though. The whole part of society that is forced labor and production is hereby coming to a close because it's making people sick. And it's been making people sick for far too long. And we have the power and we have the resources. And now with Bitcoin and the way that we're revolutionizing our energy and art by making it so flat,
Mhm.
molecularly distributing our energy blood, we're gonna close it. There's gonna be a lot of resistance naturally.
Mm-hmm. People don't like change.
And there maybe there's gonna be some museums to antiquity. But we're in late model capitalism, and it's not gonna go easy. It's not gonna I don't know how it's gonna go out. They tell me with a handshake.
Yeah. Right. And I think that's a perfect place to finish up. I think it couldn't be more perfect. So would you agree?
And some breath, yeah.
Yeah. Eric.
Shaking our hands and breathing.
Shaking our hands and breathing. Okay. Eric, it's been absolutely awesome doing this, kickstarting this podcast off with you.
First one. Woo!
Loads of fun. Been formal and informal moments, a bit of meta, lots of interesting discussions. I think it's very rewatchable. Okay. And lovely. So you have a great rest of your day. And to people watching at home, hope you enjoyed. Please come back for more. Please subscribe. Please like. We may have a Patreon set up eventually. I'm going to talk to Dylan about that, and various other things. So please come back for more. There's going to be much more interesting content as the weeks go by. So once again, thanks, Eric. And we'll see everyone next time. See you later.
See you.